Hi, everyone. I'm Katie McLean, and I'm the CEO of Tusk Hub. And today we're here to talk about the growth movement. And our subject today is share. It's all about communication and how does communication help enable more growth. I'd like to introduce you to Lynette Turner today. Lynette is a transformation consultant based in Toronto. Welcome, Lynette.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Just give me a perspective on really what sharing means within an organization, communicating, and how that can potentially impact company growth. Like why would sharing and communicating matter to company growth?
Good question, Katie, and that's a big one. I think the, sharing is really about opening up to sort of this transparency in this organization. And we've heard all about that, right? Be more transparent. And so what does that really mean? And I think that for me, you can share as much information as you want, but unless you're sharing it in a way that's with much more intention and structure and helping people really figure out what to do with that information so that they can do something with it in terms of impacting your growth, then I think that sharing is really just a means to feel good that you're sharing this information. So getting much more intentional and structured around that is where you're going to get the growth that you're looking for from your team members and for your organization.
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, we don't have those water cooler conversations anymore, right? You have to actually think about how you're going to create an environment where those can still occur, because that's a valuable exchange of information, sometimes between different departments and so forth. So how do you set that up? And one of the things that I was thinking about was when I was at Google and I was working remotely from the whole team that I worked with, was we'd set up this just very casual meeting of the women on our team. It was more like the women were going for lunch once a week. Right. And we would just talk about whatever. It could be personal, it could be business, just the same way it would be as if we'd gone for lunch together. And as a remote employee, that meant a lot to me, because sometimes it's reading between the lines that tells you how to do something or what's going on. It's not always in those formal presentations, right? It's those interactive things. So how do you as a consultant, when you go into an organization, how do you teach that or set that up, sort of that communicating with intention?
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting. So I've got a great story for you, similar to that. I first of all, I love that story about how you guys took it upon yourself to create this sort of weekly girl lunch type of thing, whether it was virtual or not. But I think it's beyond more than just, virtual water cooler talks or virtual happy hours, which I think a lot of leaders are doing a really great job doing, right? And they're these CEOs are showing up every week, and they're on the video call, and they're giving the information that team members need to feel still part of the organization and maybe safe, their job is safe, and really sort of what is the organization doing moving forward. But I think we can also get much more intentional with how we are structuring team members, how we're structuring peers to collaborate with other peers. And I think that's where you were going with that story, is the ability to create an environment where team members from across the organization, not just their particular business units, can share what they're doing to advance the organization and to create new projects, new products, new services, new processes, really sort of impacting the bottom line. It's a great thing to be able to do, and something that leaders, I think, are struggling today to do. I think that a lot of leaders are still communicating with their team members how they would in an analog world. And so when a leader gets on this virtual call, and there's no opportunity for me as a team member to either participate in that conversation, to talk to my peers live, real time, about what's going on or what's being said on that meeting, I think we've missed a huge opportunity to bring a team together to be collaborative.
I think that's interesting. And I was just in a meeting the other day where there was a couple of younger employees for Tusk Hub speaking to the CEOs of one of our clients. They had some amazing ideas and observations to share with that CEO. In some instances, they probably wouldn't have been put in front of someone like that. But because they were young and the the CEO was interested in targeting a younger audience, it was quite meaningful to have that. And that was just sort of an accidental kind of thing where that observation was able to be made. So if you're trying to set up that, I mean, how do you do it? Do you have regular meetings? Do you have cross-functional meetings? How do you do that over Zoom and leverage the technology that's available to us?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Katie. So I've spent probably, I don't know, I've been involved in about 6 cloud technology transformation projects over the past 4 or 5 years, 5, 6 years. And one thing that we do right away is we set up a regular cadence for communicating about the change. So every Monday, every Thursday, but it was beyond that. We would be, we dedicate those days to certain subject matters. So one day would be where we were talking about how they were using tools or what sort of cool things they could be using, how they could use the tools and things like that, and really sort of sharing ideas, so that now you can take that idea and work with your teammates and make it a bigger idea and build on it. And so that's what you're talking about with that story with the Tusk Hub employees and the CEO, is really sort of getting that insight into how I could do something, like modeling those behaviors, and then being able to share that. And then on the other day of the week would be sort of more of an open mic, where as hard as it is for leaders to not talk or come with a prepared agenda, to really actually listen. And I mean, that is such an amazing thing. Like, and that sort of, that listening post or that listening day really sort of takes place of that in-person walking around and finding out what's, getting the pulse of the organization. And so those 2 types of sessions in and itself can create that sense of in person. And I think that's where we're maybe sort of missing the opportunity with our virtual, we've nailed this sort of Zoom or WebEx calls, and I've got all this going on. But one thing that I think is still probably missing, and I've seen it on several occasions because I've been part of some meetings over the past few weeks, is creating your communications with the intent to have that person that's watching feel like they are in person with you, right there, right with you, right with the rest of their team members, and they're all collaborating and they're excited about it, or they're supporting each other. And it's really creating a community of support when you are able to create that sort of structure.
I love it. And I think what you're saying, Lynette, is you're intentionally creating the opportunity for 2-way communication.
Absolutely.
Or not just between the leaders and the employees, but across different functional areas, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think there's so many opportunities even to hear from employees as to how they would want to do that in setting up what works for your company. Well, thank you, Lynette. This has been amazing. I've learned a lot about just thinking about listening, or, not talking, but listening more in communications can probably lead to ideas that come to you on how to do things differently, and also can really lead to company growth because you're collaborating, everyone's speaking the same language. Any final comments on how the communication strategy could affect growth?
Yeah, I think that, you've got a lot of really great employees who potentially are introverted, and they don't have the confidence to barely show up in a big meeting room, let alone now they could be on a virtual call and they could sit and be a wallflower for a really long time. And it's those people that you need to bring in as well, and so that you're getting diversity of opinions and diversity of contribution from everyone, and leave no one behind. We're in it together.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what's happening is you know, with all the different ways you can communicate, it's not just face to face, it's in written chats and so forth, that sometimes we see the introverts come out in writing more than face to face, right? And that's okay too, because
Absolutely.
personalities and ideas can shine through Slack or whatever type of chat that you're using amongst the team. Well, this is great. Great ideas to get going forward. And thanks, Lynette, for joining us today.
Thank you, Katie. I really appreciate you inviting me, and I really enjoyed the conversation today.